8A.
Another type of consonant-consonant link connects words that end with one sound to words that begin with a similar but not the same sound. Let's listen to some examples.
His son. Tough vine. Hot dog. Help Bob.
In each of these pairs, the only difference between the sound at the end of the first word and the one at the beginning of the second word is that one is voiced and the other is voiceless. Voiced and voiceless are technical terms that describe pairs like b and p or g and k. Voice sounds are pronounced with a buzz in the throat, and voiceless ones aren't. But don't worry if you don't know exactly what that means. All you need to know is that with this type of linking, you can soften the first sound and make it more like the second. So, in his son, the z in his is pronounced like the s in son. His son. This type of linking is common in rapid spoken English, but you won't hear it in carefully pronounced speech. Practice with these pairs.
Red tail. Map book. Sick game. Half vacuumed. Health though. Sit down. Nab Paul. Big kid. Love figs. Smooth thing.
Now let's try them in sentences.
1. Is that a red-tailed hawk? 2. Where's the big map book? 3. What kind of sick game is this? 4. But this room is only half vacuumed. 5. You'd better sit down first. 6. Nab Paul if you want to go too. 7. Don's a big kid now. 8. Some people love figs.
8B. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, officer. What's the problem?
May I have your license and registration, please?
Of course. Could I ask why you stopped me?
Well, ma'am, do you know what the speed limit is?
It's 45, officer. I wasn't speeding. I know I was doing just under 45.
Do you know that this is a school zone?
I'm sorry, what?
This is a school zone, ma'am. The speed limit is 25, not 45.
But I just saw a sign. It said 45.
That was several blocks back, ma'am. This is a school zone, and the speed limit is 25.
A school zone? What do you mean?
A school zone is any street that borders the grounds of a school, or where kids usually cross the street on their way to school. There are signs all over.
I'm sorry, but I didn't see them. I don't normally drive this way, and I don't understand how I could have known that there was a school here.
I understand that, ma'am, but it's every driver's responsibility to know the traffic laws. Now, if you'll just give me a minute, I'll be right back with your license and registration. Okay, ma'am. I'm going to give you a citation for speeding in a school zone.
But, officer, I already explained that I didn't know it was a...
Ma'am, I'm sorry about that. But you really need to pay closer attention to the signs, especially in areas you're not familiar with. I clocked you at 43, and the speed limit is 25. Luckily, the kids are in class now, but...
Officer, this isn't fair.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you nicely not to argue with me. I noticed that you're also missing a headlight, and you don't have your seatbelt on either. I can give you a ticket for those violations, or just a warning.
Oh, I'm sorry, officer. I don't mean to argue.
If you disagree with this citation, it's your right to fight it in court. All of that information is on the ticket. You can also call the number listed there.
Okay. Thank you, officer.
Have a nice day. And please, ma'am, be more careful about the speed limit. If there were children around, it could have been much worse than just a ticket.
Okay. Thank you, officer.
8H.
There are a few things you need to be aware of if you happen to get stopped by a police officer. If you see an officer behind you with his lights flashing, that usually means he wants you to pull over. Try to pull over to the right side of the road rather than the left. Don't try to run away because he'll go after you and he'll call in more officers to help him catch you. Whatever traffic law you broke, running from a police officer will make it worse and could get you killed in the process. Don't just jump out of the car because the officer may think you have a gun. Roll down your passenger's window because the officer doesn't want to stand next to traffic. Wait for his instructions. He may ask you to get out of the car, or he may just ask you to show him your driver's license and registration. Be sure you always carry your license and have your registration in your car. Don't try to argue with a police officer. It won't help, and it could make things worse for you. If you are polite to the officer, he might only give you a warning, but if you argue with him, he'll most certainly give you a ticket. You can take your arguments to court to let the judge decide if you deserved the ticket or not. In the United States, you should not try to give the officer some money so that he won't give you a ticket. Bribing a police officer is very illegal, and you could go to jail if you try. A traffic ticket is a very small crime, but attempted bribery is a felony. Just accept the ticket, and if you feel it was an unfair ticket, you can go to court and you will be assigned an attorney. You can also pay the fine and go to traffic school. If you go to traffic school, it will not go on your record, and your insurance will not go up.
9A.
One of your grammar topics in this lesson is tag questions, which are questions that end in a phrase such as, isn't it, or doesn't she. In this section, we're going to learn the correct intonation for the two types of tag questions. Tag questions are used for two reasons, either to express uncertainty or to seek agreement.
That's Sally over there, isn't it? It's hot today, isn't it?
If you're expressing uncertainty or checking to be sure you're right, your voice should go down, then up on the tag ending.
Lansing's the capital of Michigan, isn't it? You're my friend, aren't you? Brenda has 3 sisters, doesn't she?
To seek agreement, your voice should go up and then down on the tag ending.
That was a boring party, wasn't it? They make a great couple, don't they? This sweater is too big, isn't it?
Let's try practicing a few tag questions that express uncertainty and are ways to confirm that they're true statements.
1. Yesterday was the 31st, wasn't it? 2. John's last name is Watson, isn't it? 3. Your friend is from Pakistan, isn't he? 4. The concert's tomorrow night, isn't it? 5. All the guests have arrived, haven't they?
Now let's practice 5 more that seek agreement.
6. There are too many people, aren't there? 7. Her new haircut is great, isn't it? 8. She's too old for that, isn't she? 9. He's been there too long, hasn't he? 10. Everybody likes them, don't they? 9B.
Dear Kathy, hey, don't think I'm mean for sending you an email while I'm sitting next to a pool in the sun, sipping one of those big tropical drinks, while you're sitting at your computer in your office back in Minneapolis. I'm just trying to send you some sun." What a trip this has been. You remember how much I was looking forward to coming here, don't you? Well, practically as soon as I arrived, I began to catch a cold. What a bummer. Anyway, I missed the hiking expedition we had planned. I had to stay in bed the whole day, but David went and told me all about it when he got back. He said it was unbelievable, so picturesque. They got to walk near the summit of a volcano. David said the tour guide told them that the flora and fauna were relatively undisturbed and that the area was reminiscent of what Hawaii used to look like before the tourists took it over. I felt better the next day and was ready to start my adventures. Since we had more than 1.5 weeks left, we decided I should go slowly. So we went for a cruise in a glass-bottom boat. It was absolutely spectacular. The colors of the tropical fish and the coral formations were just amazing. But I was still a bit sick, and I was pretty exhausted after the cruise, so I just hung around the hotel for the rest of the day and read, while David went off and looked into some other things for us to do. We spent a couple of days just walking around, looking at the shops and lying on the beach. When I started to feel like myself again, we decided to take an eco-tour. We were able to see how Hawaii has some amazingly different terrain. One of the things we saw was a Hawaiian temple on a bluff above Waimea Bay. The panoramic view overlooking the ocean from there was incredible. We also went to a bird sanctuary where we looked through a telescope to enhance our view. Then we got to go for a walk on this absolutely pristine beach where we saw plants, birds, dolphins, whales, and even a sea turtle. I leave in a few days, but one of the last things I want to do here is visit Hawaii's lush rainforest. You know all those commercials you see with the beautiful swaying coconut trees, the white sand, and the turquoise-colored ocean, don't you? Well, they're all true. I can't wait to see the rainforest. I hope you get to come to Hawaii someday soon. You just love it here, and it sure beats January in Minneapolis. See you real soon, Meredith.
9H.
Hi, Kathy.
Meredith, welcome back. Thanks for your message. It really sounds like you had a great trip.
Yeah, I did. What about you? Did you do anything?
Yeah, actually. I went to Acapulco for 5 days.
Acapulco? What fun! Tell me about it. What'd you do?
Oh, lots of things. I went to nightclubs nearly every night and learned to dance the salsa. I'm getting pretty good. I want to keep it up here at home.
Wow, great.
And have you heard of La Quebrada cliff divers?
No.
Well, they dive into the ocean off these high cliffs while holding torches. They've got a lot of courage, but it's really beautiful to watch them. Of course, I spent a lot of time at the beach.
I see the tan.
It'll get me through another few weeks of winter. And take a look at this bracelet. One day, I went to a place called Taxco and bought some beautiful silver jewelry. I did some clothes shopping in Acapulco, too. I was surprised at how cheap things were there. Of course, I had some great Mexican food. You know how I feel about Mexican food.
It sounds like you had a great time. But did you meet anybody?
As a matter of fact, I did. And he lives right here in Minneapolis. Can you believe it?
Tell me, give me all the details.
Well, one night while I was dancing...
10A.
You may have noticed that some statements seem more like questions when you hear them. That's because they are questions. Any statement can be turned into a question simply by raising intonation on the end.
This is a question?
This kind of question often shows surprise or uncertainty, but just about any kind of question can be formed this way, especially in natural spoken English. Listen to these examples.
It's going to rain during the game this weekend? The Hornets are winning? There are only 15 people in class? The film starts in half an hour? This is all the chocolate that's left?
Now you try it. Listen to the following statements and then repeat them as questions. Pay attention to your intonation.
1. Jesse's going to Albuquerque this weekend. Jesse's going to Albuquerque this weekend? 2. The tickets cost $150 each. The tickets cost $150 each? 3. It's time to go already. It's time to go already? 4. He was a professional basketball player. He was a professional basketball player? 5. The game was canceled. The game was canceled? 6. The game ended in a tie. The game ended in a tie?
10b.
Well, folks, it looks like we're going to have great weather for the playoffs. Let's go down to the stadium where Kevin Brenton is covering the games this weekend. Kevin.
Good afternoon, Ted. It's a great day for baseball. Our own Bisons will be taking on the Mud Hens here in about 30 minutes. It looks good for our team. They have to win 4 out of 7 to go on to the league championship series, and the first 2 games are at home, so our guys have the home field advantage. The Bisons lineup has all the best hitters going out there first, and they're starting with Jed Buck, one of the best pitchers in the league. I spoke to a few of the players earlier today, and they're really excited and confident about the playoffs. Jed said his arm had never felt better. First baseman Marty Bevins said his arm was healed up and ready to play. Coach Carl Lyons said that although this would be his second chance for the league championship series, he's much more confident that they're going for the gold this time.
Hey, that's great. Say, what kind of a crowd do you have out there, Kevin?
Well, the stadium's getting pretty full. The folks out here seem real excited. I see a lot of Mud Hens fans, too. You can tell they're Mud Hens fans because of all the orange out here. But our fans are here, too, and they're really worked up. There are more tailgate parties out in the parking lot than usual.
Wow, that sounds great, Kevin. I wish I were there.
I think the whole city wants to be here today. I hear traffic's really bad from all sides getting to the stadium.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. Well, thanks, Kevin. And of course, Kevin will give a full report on the game later on tonight. But now let's turn back to local news.
10H. Well, what do you think, Ted? We are really down to the wire on this one. Right now, it's a tie, 5-5, and the Mud Hens are at bat in the top of the 9th. This is one exciting game, isn't it?
You bet, Kevin. The Bison's Robert Jackson is one of the best closing pitchers in the league. That's going to make it mighty difficult to get any hits off of him.
Oh, strike 3 for Ray Blockhurst. Well, that pretty much leaves it up to Marty Bevins to keep this game from going into overtime. There's nobody on base, so his best chance for winning this game is for him to bring himself in to home base.
Yeah, he's such a strong hitter. If anybody can do it, he can. Strike 1.
We're going to see right now how he handles the pressure. Ball 1.
He really needs to focus so he can get that baby out of here. It's a hit! Oh, foul ball. Bevins needs to get his concentration going for him. Coach Lyons is pacing.
I would be too. 2 strikes and 1 ball. There's another ball. 2 strikes, 2 balls.
There it goes! It's out of there! He did it! Game over! What a slugger!
Wow, did you see that thing go? It's all over. What a game! 11A.
There are certain English vowels that cause more problems than others do. For example, the vowel in seat and the vowel in sit are very similar, but important to distinguish between. That's difficult for many students of English, but there are a couple of things you can do to make these sounds easier for you. For the vowel in seat, the sides of your tongue should be pressed against your upper teeth. Relax the tip of your tongue. Now say E and hold the sound. Don't stop it too short. Say E. Here are a few words to practice.
Seat, heat, read, seed, bead, weep, sleep, keep, G, keen.
Now let's try the vowel in sit. It's much lower and looser than E. Let your tongue lie in the bottom of your mouth between your lower teeth. Lift the back of your tongue only slightly. Make the sound very short. If it still sounds like E, focus on keeping your mouth more relaxed and loose. E is a very tight sound, and I is relaxed. Let's practice.
Sit, hit, rid, sid, bid, whip, slip, kip, jip, kin.
Now practice these two sounds together.
Seat, sit. Heat, hit. Read, rid. Seed, sid. Bead, bid. Weep, whip. Sleep, slip. Keep, kip. Jeep, jip. Keen, kin.
Here are some sentences to practice.
1. I hit my head on the heater. 2. Terry sleeps in a slip. 3. He'll weep if you whip him. 4. You may sit in this seat. 5. Make a bid on these beads, please. 6. Sid ate some seeds. 7. This Jeep was a Jip. 8. Keep Kip awake. 9. I feel keen about my kin. 10. Read how to get rid of them. 11b.
The idea for the Internet began back in the early days of the Cold War. Feeling nervous about the possibility of a nuclear war, the American government began to wonder how communications within the military could be maintained. Having communication in one central location would make it vulnerable to attack. So in deep secrecy, RAND Corporation began to work on a solution to this chilling possibility in the 1960s. Paul Baran of RAND Corporation came up with the idea for the beginnings of the Internet, a new communication system that would have neither central location nor authority and would be designed to operate in chaos. It was a brilliant solution to the possibility of a nuclear holocaust because it was intended to be decentralized from the beginning. Information would be delivered through individual nodes, each with its own authority to send and receive messages. Information would wind its way around this system until ultimately reaching its intended destination. It wouldn't matter if one or another node were destroyed, because the information would remain in the air, received and sent among whichever nodes remained. To realize this vision of a decentralized communication system, an ambitious project called ARPANET was assembled in the U.S. and its nodes were the high-speed supercomputers of the time. The first node was installed at UCLA in 1969, and 3 others were set up later that year. By the second year, this project unintentionally turned into a high-speed mail service, as those working on the project began to transmit news and personal messages via this network. By the time the military segment broke off and began its own system, ARPANET had begun to warp into something different. A very large and rapidly growing network of communication comprising several different systems. This network became a galaxy of nodes as groups and individuals began to have greater access to more powerful computers. This network evolved into the Internet as we know it today, as this cheap and wondrous information and communication tool was bound to become incredibly popular with the general public. Today, it's a system that, put simply, connects everyone to everyone else. Mail is transferred among individuals from country to country, and discussions take place between people who might never have had a chance to meet in person. But of course, this kind of communication is not all that happens over the Internet. It's perhaps more than anything a vast warehouse of information, making it a tool for reference and research. It's also an invaluable business tool used by both businesses and consumers. Although governments have some control over messages and information on the Internet, there is no central control. No government that operates this network of communication. It essentially belongs to the people. This can be both a good thing and a bad thing, as such freedom necessarily allows for the exchange of any kind of information or opinion. Ironically, what grew from a fear of the potential annihilation of the human race has given us peaceful possibilities we'd never imagined. The anarchy of the Internet is ripe with the potential for truly connecting human beings, for allowing us to understand one another in ways that would have been impossible. It's perhaps an oversimplification to assume that all problems can be worked out through communication, but communication is at least a start, and it can help avoid many conflicts. Surely the Internet is a tool unlike any other for communication, and surely the human race can greatly benefit from the ability of 2 people from across the world to share, even in cyberspace.
11H. Computer Technical Assistance Hotline. This is Dwayne Richards speaking. Can I help you?
Hello. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. What can I help you with?
Well, I just bought a new printer and I can't get it to work.
Is it properly plugged into the USB port?
I think so.
Why don't you go ahead and check that connection?
Okay. It looks good. It's attached to the computer.
Okay, now follow the cable from your computer to the printer and see if the connection there is good too.
Okay. Now let me try it. Still seems fine, and nothing's happening on the printer.
Okay. How about the installation software? Was the device set up properly on your hard drive?
Yes, I followed the instructions very carefully.
Okay. How about the plug? Is it plugged in properly?
Do you mean to the electricity? Yes, the power cable is plugged into a wall socket.
And it's turned on?
Yes, it's turned on.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is the outlet controlled by a light switch?
Yes, I think it is.
And is the light switch on? If it's off, the printer can't get any power.
Oh, how embarrassing. The switch was off. I feel so stupid.
Don't, ma'am. You'd be surprised how often that happens. I get calls like this all the time. 12A.
English sometimes clusters 2 or 3 consonants together in the same word. These clusters can be difficult to pronounce, so even native speakers often have ways to make them a little easier, especially in familiar or relaxed speech. When 3 or more consonants are clustered together, one of the sounds is often dropped. Here are some examples, first spoken carefully, and then in a more relaxed way.
Windmill. Windmill. Strands. Strands. Asked. Asked. risked, wrist, exactly, exactly, texts, texts.
In the first two words, the D can be dropped. Again, especially in relaxed or conversational speech. What you might hear is windmill and strands. In the next two words, the K can be dropped, so you might hear asked and wrist. In these two words, the final D sound also changes to a T. In the last two words, the T can be dropped, so you may hear exactly and tex. Here are a few more words that work the same way. Again, first pronounced carefully and then more casually.
Trends, trends, trusts, trusts, sounds, sounds, kindness, kindness, shiftless, shiftless, listless, listless.
Occasionally, TH may be either dropped or changed. For example, the most common pronunciation of the word clothes is close. Other examples of this are fractions. Instead of saying 3/4, some people say 3/4, especially in quick, relaxed speech. Let's practice a few of these.
Clothes, close, months, months, 3/4, 3/4, 7/8, 7/8, 9/10, 9/10.
Now practice these sentences.
1. Do you need any new clothes? 2. Jake has been feeling restless lately. 3. You asked me a little too late. 4. Tragedy brings out human kindness. 5. Your texts are in the bookstore. 6. Most young people like to follow trends. 7. Norm risked everything for his family. 8. Oh, chocolate ice cream sounds good. 9. I know exactly what you mean. 10. He trusts his hands to do the work properly.
12A.
English sometimes clusters 2 or 3 consonants together in the same word. These clusters can be difficult to pronounce, so even native speakers often have ways to make them a little easier, especially in familiar or relaxed speech. When 3 or more consonants are clustered together, one of the sounds is often dropped. Here are some examples, first spoken carefully, and then in a more relaxed way.
Windmill, windmill. Strands, strands. Asked, asked. Risked, wrist. Exactly, exactly. Texts, texts.
In the first two words, the D can be dropped. Again, especially in relaxed or conversational speech. What you might hear is windmill and strands. In the next two words, the K can be dropped, so you might hear asked and wrist. In these two words, the final D sound also changes to a T. In the last two words, the T can be dropped, so you may hear exactly and tex. Here are a few more words that work the same way. Again, first pronounced carefully and then more casually.
Trends. Trends. Trusts. Trusts. Sounds. Sounds. Kindness. Kindness. Shiftless. Shiftless. Listless. Listless.
Occasionally, TH may be either dropped or changed. For example, the most common pronunciation of the word clothes is close. Other examples of this are fractions. Instead of saying 3/4, some people say 3/4, especially in quick, relaxed speech. Let's practice a few of these.
Clothes. Close. Months. Months. 3/4. 3/4. 7/8. 7/8. 9/10. 9/10.
Now practice these sentences.
1. Do you need any new clothes? 2. Jake has been feeling restless lately. 3. You asked me a little too late. 4. Tragedy brings out human kindness. 5. Your texts are in the bookstore. 6. Most young people like to follow trends. 7. Norm risked everything for his family. 8. Oh, chocolate ice cream sounds good. 9. I know exactly what you mean. 10. He trusts his hands to do the work properly.
12b. Since the early colonial days, Americans have at times been bitterly divided on important political and social issues. Even the American Revolution of 1776 did not enjoy overwhelming support among colonists, for example. Many colonial Americans wanted their independence from England, but there was a group that was deeply loyal to King George. The fight for freedom within the 13 colonies was not won any more easily than the war for independence from the British. The most tragic and dramatic example of division in American society came almost 100 years later. The Civil War began in 1861 and ended in 1865, but there remains a legacy of injustice and division to this day. The reason for such a rift in the country, the northern and western states on one side and the southern states on the other, was the issue of states' rights, especially as applied to the ability of the federal government to prohibit slavery. When the South, whose economy was based on slavery, seceded, a bloody war was fought for 4 years, and in many cases, brother fought brother, or father fought son. Although in the end the Union was preserved, it came at a great cost, and many economic, political, and social issues were left far from resolved. In the late 1950s and 1960s, another civil war of sorts flared up within the United States. This was the Civil Rights Movement, a struggle to secure basic civil rights for all Americans regardless of race. The beginning of the movement is usually identified as the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, followed by years of protests, marches, sit-ins, and the well-known August 28, 1963 March on Washington, where Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech was first heard. The late 1960s produced another turbulent divide in American society, this time over the Vietnam War. This division was primarily a division between supporters of the war and the traditional views of government and power structure on one side, and opponents to the war who held newer, more progressive ideas about solving world problems on the other. As a result, the late 1960s was a time of great cultural clashes between young and old, between new and traditional, between liberal and conservative. This clash has, of course, not disappeared. On the social and political landscape of today, many issues such as abortion, gun control, the environment, gay rights, religion and foreign policy, to name just a few, continue to divide the American people. While many Americans hold moderate views, there is also a very deep gulf between liberals and conservatives, right-wing Republicans and left-wing Democrats, the wealthy and the working class. But as American history suggests, clashes are nothing new, and divides are never impossible to close. In a sense, it's possible to say that the American government, with its system of checks and balances, was set up to deal with these divisions, which are probably inevitable in free and democratic societies where people can express views and attempt to influence their country as they see fit. To deal with this, Americans have time after time opted to elect a president and a Congress with opposing views, almost by instinct, to allow the checks and balances written into the Constitution to operate and to protect the Union. There may always be intense division within this country, but there is also a stronger drive to protect, above all, the Union that is the United States. 12H.
President Jimmy Carter is known for his generous nature. He has overseen elections in developing countries and brokered peace accords. Since his presidency, he and his wife Rosalind have immersed themselves in the organization Habitat for Humanity, so much that people have come to think of it as his organization. But this organization, devoted to building or rehabilitating homes for those in need, was actually started in 1976 by Millard and Linda Fuller. The Fullers left a wealthy lifestyle in Montgomery, Alabama, to begin a life devoted to Christian service. They started partnership housing, where those in need worked right alongside volunteers to build simple, inexpensive homes. There was to be no profit made and no interest charged. The building fund was to be a revolving fund for others and would come from the new homeowners' house payments as well as gifts of money given by those who felt they had more than they needed. This project was never intended to be a handout, but rather a working partnership between the volunteers and the new homeowners. Jimmy and Rosalind Carter became involved in Habitat for Humanity in 1984, bringing the organization national and international recognition. For example, the Carters work side by side with the volunteers and new homeowners on the Jimmy Carter Work Project in New York City, and doubtlessly their involvement has spread awareness of this generous organization and inspired many to volunteer or donate. The work of Habitat for Humanity has touched many people. Since its beginning, Habitat for Humanity has built over 150,000 homes in over 3,000 communities all over the world. In short, Habitat for Humanity has brought hope for over 600,000 needy people in the form of a very basic need that many take for granted: affordable housing.
13A. Let's look at some more reductions. When using would have, should have, or could have quickly and conversationally, reduce these to woulda, shoulda, and coulda when used before a verb with a consonant sound, and would've, should've, and could've before a verb with a vowel sound. Let's practice. First, you'll hear the more careful and formal pronunciation, and then the more conversational.
Would have had. Woulda had. Would have liked. Woulda liked. Would have acted. Would have acted. Would have been. Would have been. Would have untied. Would have untied. Should have gone. Should have gone. Should have taken. Should have taken. Should have eaten. Should have eaten. Should have earned. Should have earned. Could have rested. Could have rested. Could have talked. Could have talked. Could have edited. Could have edited. Could have asked. Could have asked.
The same thing happens with the negative forms. They sound like this: wouldn't-a, wouldn't-have, shouldn't-a, shouldn't-have, couldn't-a, couldn't-have. Let's practice.
Wouldn't have left. Wouldn't have left. Wouldn't have asked. Wouldn't have asked. Shouldn't have made. Shouldn't have made. Shouldn't have ended. Shouldn't have ended. Couldn't have written. Couldn't have written. Couldn't have earned. Couldn't have earned.
Let's try some of these in sentences.
1. You should have told me you were coming. 2. We could have rested for a while. 3. We couldn't have asked for more. 4. Danny wouldn't have visited you if he knew. 5. We should have asked the teacher about it. 6. Dan could have entered the contest before. 7. I couldn't have taken your jacket. 8. It wouldn't have taken so long to do it.
13b.
Hello?
Hi, Corrine. Nancy Plummer.
Hi, Nancy. What's the good word?
Well, I talked to the agent for Carlton Street, and I think we can get them to come down on their price. Their appraisal didn't come in as high as they thought it would.
Nancy, I don't know. I mean, it's so much money. How much do you think we could get it for?
I think we can get them to come down by $25,000, maybe.
Really? But that's still so much money. I just don't know if I'm really ready for this. It needs some work, and I can't afford to pay for a big mortgage and then pay to have some work done on it, too.
Why don't we see what kind of a loan we can get? We could either put 0 down or make a down payment of 5%, and then you could use your cash to fix it up. There are all kinds of ways you can get money to fix up a place without paying a whole lot out.
But then I'd have to pay PMI, wouldn't I?
That's true, but in today's market, your equity will grow really fast. In a year or two, when it's worth more, you can refinance and get rid of the PMI payments.
But it's so much money. What if I can't make the payments? Then I'd have to go into foreclosure and be back at 0 again.
You're not going to go into foreclosure. I wouldn't be selling you this house if I thought that you couldn't afford it. Look, I can go back into my computer and check to see what other listings there are. Maybe there's something in a price range you'll feel more comfortable with.
No, we've already looked at everything out there. What if there are problems? What if the plumbing's about to go or something?
The owners are required by law to provide a full disclosure before escrow closes and you take possession. If there's something wrong, they have to fix it. There are laws to protect you.
Well, it is a really nice house. How much did you say you thought we could get it for again?
13h.
Termites. If you're buying or selling a home, or even if you're simply living in a home with no plans to sell, chances are you'll have to think about termites, those little ant-like insects that love to feast on wood and that can destroy your most valuable investment, your home. Termites are potentially such a problem that a termite inspection is usually required when you sell your home. But any homeowner needs to be aware of termites and keep an eye out for infestation. How can you tell if your home is infested with termites? One scary clue is what's called a swarm. Swarming is when termites all emerge from the woodwork of your house and fly around, usually in spring when they're looking to breed and form a new colony. But there are other ways too. Termites typically leave small tunnels in the wood they've eaten, or they form mud tubes leading from a home into the ground along a foundation or wall. Any one of these signs may mean that a house has a serious termite problem and needs professional attention. Termites can be controlled through chemical insecticides, more specifically called termiticides. These are chemicals that are lethal to termites and that are put into the soil around a home. The chemical is applied so that it forms a barrier around a home, and any termite that comes in contact with it will die. It is also possible to use a termite bait, which is made of some form of termite food, such as wood or paper, that has been poisoned. Termites will be attracted to the bait, and once they eat it, they will share it with their nest mates and die. Both termiticides and baits should be handled only by experienced pest control specialists. And how long does all of this last? Termites will eventually show up again, even in a house that was thoroughly treated. The treatments last for a few years at most, so it's possible that homeowners will have to deal with them again and again. It's ironic that such a small creature can be such a big threat to such an important investment as a home.
14a.
In natural speech, it is common to shorten to so it sounds like tuh. This happens in infinitives as well as in prepositional phrases.
We need to finish our homework before going to the movies. I like to go to the beach when it's warm. Sam hates to get his hair cut.
Let's practice a few phrases.
Offer to study. To the park. Volunteer to work. To the airport. Wait to call. To the end.
After have, has, want, got, and going, to changes form even more drastically, especially in very relaxed English.
Do you want to go to a movie tonight? We've got to close the door before he comes. Nobody has to stay home. We have to sleep on the floor tonight. They're going to sleep well tonight.
Let's practice a few phrases.
Have to go. Want to know. Has to remember. Gotta see.
Now let's practice these phrases in sentences.
1. They agreed to help us. 2. I wish to see you before I leave. 3. He has to feel sorry. 4. Did you remember to lock the door? 5. We've got to get this finished. 6. He seems to be very tired tonight. 7. We want to stay in a nice hotel. 8. She seems to like you. 9. Do you want to go to the baseball game? 10. I demand to speak to the manager.
14b.
Hello, Ms. Rendon. I'm Laura Beck, James's mother. How are you?
Mrs. Beck, so nice to meet you. Yes, have a seat. I've just been reviewing James's work. Let's see.
Yes, James has always been such a good student. I don't know what's happened to him.
Honestly, a lot of kids' grades go down around their sophomore or junior year, especially boys.
I don't know whether to be comforted by that or not, but high school is when his GPA is the most important. He wants to go to a university, but if he keeps getting grades like this, he'll have to go to a junior college first.
Well, sometimes kids need a little time to mature before going to a university. Maybe a JC isn't such a bad thing for some kids.
His father and I both went straight to universities. We expect James to do the same.
Okay, well, he hasn't been doing his homework. That's one problem. I don't have many entries for homework assignments, and the homework prepares the kids for the exams. His exam scores are a little lower than they used to be. His lower grade this semester is a consequence of not turning in his homework and not scoring well on tests. He hasn't done much participating in classroom discussions either. He probably isn't reading his assignments, or maybe he just doesn't understand what he's reading. I've asked him about it, but he just shrugs his shoulders, so I'm not sure what the problem is. Sometimes it's not the subject that causes a student to lose interest or not do well in class.
Everything's fine at home. We have a very close family, so I don't think it has anything to do with his home life.
Have you spoken to his counselor?
No.
Well, have you asked James why he's not doing well in class?
I've tried, but he just gives me a vague response. I can't get anything out of him.
If he won't tell me, and he won't tell you, then you might want to talk to his counselor.
Okay, I think I'll do that. I'm also going to talk to him about his assignments. Do you have a syllabus with the assignments?
Yes, I'll get you one. Remember that he may have some issues going on in his life that you may not know about. Kids at this age really start keeping their problems to themselves. Other than his grades going down, he's a good kid. I'm sure this is just a passing concern.
Okay, Ms. Rendon. I appreciate all your help.
No problem. Take care.
14H.
Hello and welcome to the Jackson Junior College registration line. You may either key in your entries or speak them into the phone. If you are already registered as a student, please speak or key in your Social Security number.
559-38-0001.
You said 559-38-0001. Please say yes if this is correct and no if it is incorrect.
Yes.
Thank you. You are currently in our system as an enrolled student. You may now say the number of the class you wish to take.
Spanish 305.
You said Spanish 305. If this is correct, say
Yes.
Thank you. State the day or days and time you wish to take this class.
Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:30.
You said Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:30. Is this?
Yes.
Please wait while I check our records. There is space available in Spanish 305 on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:30 at the Johnson campus. Is this the course you want to take?
Yes.
Thank you. The address for Johnson campus is...
Wait. Did you say Johnson campus? I want the Jackson campus.
I'm sorry. I did not understand you.
I want the 3:30 Tuesday-Thursday class on the Jackson campus.
I'm sorry. I did not understand you.
Can I want to speak to a real person. Somebody, anybody.
I'm sorry. I did not understand you. Goodbye.
Oh.